Thomas Frank even said at the start of the game or before the game that they were going to press at every opportunity they got, but they never really seemed to hit their stride either in possession or out of possession. And I'd like to think that was down to us some bit. It may be a bit naive to say that it was, but I do think we were just better on the night, and we contributed somewhat to their to how poor they were. But they're still a difficult side to come up against, and I think they showed that maybe the first 15-20 minutes of the second half that they did have a little bit of something in them, and they were kind of taking the game to Tottenham and carrying the initiative quite well in how they were keeping the ball and getting advanced up the pitch quite a bit as well. But you were saying in your instant match reaction, I fully agree with it, that it seemed like a team that had just come up with the expectation of going back down. And I kind of go one step further. It seemed like a team who had already been relegated, and they had a bit of freedom about the way they were playing, but they weren't too worried about getting caught in the counter, which Tottenham
that's
did,
a nice, I like that.
Yeah, and look, so we take it.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, exactly what about our performance you liked, because I just didn't see it as one of those performances that I would put in the best category. I think we were probably better against Man City maybe better, first half, Chelsea even. But we've been poor this season. So what exactly did you like about the performance?
It was just the progress, to be honest, and that's all we can really ask for with Conte. At this stage, of course, it's only his third league game in. It's that it's better than the last performance, and it's better than what we saw under the last couple of managers. And I feel that it was. I thought, in possession, we looked a bit more threatening going forward. We were taking on shots from distances that we haven't in quite a while, which led to that 3.5 games without a shot on target. Son had one from range today that I think Fernandes saved well. But there's a bit of fluidity back in that front line, and you have to remember, you can't go from 0 to 100. You can't expect to be playing the defensive football we were playing last year at the start of this season, and then in one game everything be back to absolutely perfect. It wasn't, but they were trying a few things, between Son and Lucas quite a bit. There was a few quick intricate passes, a few flicks, good movement off the ball, and it didn't come off, but that's fine because it's better than what we were doing last week, and hopefully next week we're going to be even better than that again. And I wouldn't put it, obviously I wouldn't put it anywhere near a classic Spurs performance, or maybe even like the ones you mentioned there, City and Chelsea first half were probably better performances, but this one feels more like a building block than those games did, because that Chelsea game was very much a one-off, and that City game, I think it's just the luck we have against Man City perhaps was just what carried us over the line in the end. But this feels like a building block, and one that we can add on. And look, having said that, the game against Norwich on Sunday is going to be a completely different task, and they're going to park the bus, and then we get into that situation where we don't have that creativity and we don't have that number 10 that can break them down. But if we're comparing the performances from the last 2 months, I just think we were better in possession. We're more compact and more structured out of possession. And there was a lot of Conte-isms, is the best way to describe it, creeping into the game. That second goal that we scored, I saw a stat, it was like 4.2 seconds between the ball crossing the halfway line and the ball crossing the goal line. And that speed going forward is something that it is. Oh, it's typical Conte. And even the way we got forward, that ball played into Son, he cushions it for Harry Kane and he spins and he's gone. That kind of, those layoffs to make that play between the lines is what made Conte so successful, especially in his last spell at Inter Milan. It's so fluid, and it's really difficult for teams to compete with. And when you have someone like Harry Kane who can pick up that half space and on his day can pick out passes like that, it's going to be difficult for any team to compete with us. But it's about doing this on a consistent basis and against better teams as well. That would be the biggest task for Antonio Conte.
Do you know what, Matt? You have brightened up my day already, because what he's done is he's turned this into me being a spoilt Spurs fan that has, I've got too...
Why? Why are you spoiled?
Because I got too used to such good football under Poch and all that sort of stuff that, I just expect us to play good football all the time, whereas he's made me see this as a building block, which is what it is. Do you know what I mean? He's totally right. There's no way that we were just going to go from playing defensive football to free-flowing attacking football. And he's just made me feel much better about it.
Well, I had to change my headphones, so I missed what Matt said there. But yeah, fair play. You mentioned before, you said you like the defensive shape. Could you elaborate a little bit more on that? So what is it? Just the fact they're playing in a 3 and there's a little bit more cover? Or do you actually think that they're kind of grown into that, like they've taken the mantle and they're growing into their position a little bit more? Players are sort of stepping up a bit.
Yeah, look, that definitely applies to Eric Dyer and Ben Davis, who I thought were really good on the night and have been quite good since Conte came in. Not entirely defensively based, but I think Ben Davis going forward as a attacking centre back, I think in a similar position to what Alessandro Bastoni has played for at Inter Milan, he's taken on that mantle really well. But defensively, I think the difference between what we're doing now and what we did under Jose Mourinho, I'd kind of exclude Nuno from this because I just don't want to talk tactics about him because I don't think there's much there to talk about. But with Jose Mourinho, he knew that our defence wasn't good enough. He knew the personnel in there wasn't good enough. And what he did was he just tried to to put us as deep as possible with just a simple, four at the back and just defend and hope for the best. But with Conte, like you mentioned, there's 3 at the back there, which immediately is an extra man in there. There just seems to be more structure and more kind of discipline and more of a plan within there in how to contend with these teams. And with the 3 defenders back there up against Ivan Toney and Brian Mbeumo, that's an extra man up there straight away. What I like to see was when, for example, Enrico Henry had the ball out on the left-hand side, Emerson Royal is being dragged out to deal with that, as he should be. But Sergio Reguilon then on the other side was filling in, and it made it seem a really rigid back 4. And it just seemed like we had that extra man in defence at all times. And with the way we were defending in the middle of the pitch as well, like I mentioned, those 3 in midfield with Norgard, Janelt and Onyeka, they had that extra man over there. But I thought Højbjerg and Skip were just so good at kind of cutting out the passing channels. And again, conceding that possession out wide, which Brentford thankfully didn't really try to avail of, but cutting out those passing lines and preventing them from building any sort of attack within those central positions. And look, it may have been luck on the night, it may have been Brentford playing into our hands, but I thought the structure was good and the plan was clear to see there from Conte.
What do you make of the? Sorry, because I know you're about to say something there, but I want to talk about Pierre.
I was actually going to.
Were you going to ask him about that?
I was going to ask him about. See, we're so in sync.
There we go.
But no, but I was also going to say. I was going to say, what did you think of Kane and Pierre as well?
I'll start with Kane because I've been very vocal in my criticism of him this season, and I don't think there's much there today that you can praise. But again, it's just progress. I thought he was working a little bit harder off the ball, especially in that second half. I think I noticed in the first half his pressing was leaving a bit to be desired. But in the second half, he seemed a bit more keen. He was sprinting down the ball rather than just trying to cut off the half space with a light-hearted jog. In possession, we saw a few more good passes like that ball to Reguilon. He had that brilliant volley pass out to Emerson in the first half as well, which probably should have resulted in a chance for Son. So again, a bit more progress, which makes it easier to be patient, as we know we have to be when we're seeing those building blocks. With Højbjerg, he's not been at the level he was at last season, but that may be because he has another competent defensive midfielder in beside him in Oliver Skip, who I think was the best player in the pitch tonight. He's kind of taken the onus off Højbjerg a bit in those positions, and I think what Skip did really well tonight that Højbjerg didn't was when Brentford were trying to break, he was winning every 50-50 he was involved in, and he was nullifying that threat right at the source rather than us having to chase the game backwards. And maybe Skip being that standout player is making Højbjerg look a little bit worse. But I'm not going to criticise Højbjerg because he's that player that will give passion 100%, and even his bad game is a 5 or a 6 out of 10. Whereas there's some players in that team whose good game is 5 or 6 out of 10. But Højbjerg hasn't been at the level. I agree. I'll keep saying it, that midfield is lacking a ball player. It happened a few times where Skip had those chances to ping balls out wide and keep Brentford penned back, whether it was a corner that was cleared or something, and he didn't really have that passing ability, and Højbjerg doesn't have it either. So I do think we need an extra man in there. Take Lucas out, put Kane and Son as a 2 and play a number 10. But the only thing is we don't have
take Lucas out. Don't want to say that with John here. Take Lucas out.
Sorry, John. You have to take someone out. But we don't have a 10 in there just yet. You can't trust Lo Celso. You can't trust Ndombele. I don't think Lucas is creative enough on the ball in terms of his passing range to play in that central role. But if we get one in January, I'd be very surprised if we don't switch to that 3-4-1-2. But in terms of the rigidity and building something again to improve on going forward, I think that's a very, very good midfield duo we have in there.
Give it Winky. That's what I say.
Give it a Winky. What do you reckon of his cameos?
I said in the first half, and I didn't read my comments after I said this on my live stream, but I said he was the player that we were missing in that first half. And in terms of style rather than the quality he's shown recently, because the best thing he was for Tottenham was when we were playing every game like we played that first half, camped in the opposition box. He was that metronome that was playing that pass that Skip couldn't, and he was still the player breaking up those 50-50. So look, if Winks can get back to any sort of form, I think he's a good player to have in these types of games. And he played a few good passes when he came on. He played a brilliant ball down the line for Son. He had one moment in the middle of the park under a bit of pressure and a few 2-3 quick passes with Skip, and we got out of that trouble. But I'd put him in the same bracket as Dyer, as we kind of had these moments with them a lot, but it's never consistent, and you're always back down in 2-3 weeks' time to how is he a professional footballer. And I wouldn't
that could happen. That's the problem. I see a lot of fans are quite reactive. As soon as he has a couple of good cameos against poor opposition, everyone's like, he's incredible, get him back in, and then like he'll play up against a top club, and then suddenly everyone's like, what is he doing? Like, he should have been sold 2 seasons ago. We're very fickle as a fan base.
He's been mismanaged though by, I'm not saying he's a great player. I'm not saying that. I'm not back in Winks, but I'm just saying, like, at his best, he did play well against some good teams. Real Madrid, Man City. He's played good games. Do you know what I mean? Under Poch.
But when he's really under the cosh, though, he gets exposed, I think. And it can almost feel as though we're playing with 10 men, I think, in those teams.
I'm not even going to lie. I know you two won't agree with this, but sometimes I feel like that with Højbjerg as well. I honestly
You're
do
feeling
feel
that,
like
aren't you, this season?
when he's constantly being pressured and passing back because he isn't a ball player.
Yeah.
I know he can in space find some good passes,
Yeah.
but that's different to being able to deal with pressure. But anyway, so
Matt, you know what I liked about Winks when he came on? He gave the ball away 2 or 3 times, but he gave the ball away because he was actually driving forwards with the ball. I don't know if you noticed, he actually a couple of dribbles. And actually, for me, that's what's always been missing out of his game, is that ability to actually dribble your way out of trouble. You know, like Mora does, he kind of dribbles the team out of trouble a little bit. And I actually think if Winks added more to that game, I don't mind if he gives the ball away doing that, because I actually think it helps the team. Did you notice anything different in that today?
I did. He looked more positive on the ball, and a few kind of forward passes as well that went a bit astray. But there's this weird thing, and I don't know if it's just within the Tottenham fan base or if it's within every fan base. But if you look at Winks' passing stats, say for the last couple of years, I'm sure his pass completion is 85, 90, 95%.
Yeah, the highest.
He plays those, he plays those sideways passes. He plays those backwards passes. And you can say it's an agenda or narrative, whatever. It's fact. The passes he plays go that direction. Then you look at Dele Alli, and his pass accuracy is probably down at 60, 70%. And I remember making this point very, very vocally when we played Stoke in the Carabao Cup last year. Remember, Dele Alli gave the ball away, and Jose blamed him for the goal that happened. But when you're a player like Dele Alli, the passes you try, the flicks around the corner, or the balls in between the two centre backs, more often than not, those passes are going to be intercepted. But I'd rather play, say, 5 passes trying to get through the lines, set someone in a goal, and 4 are failed and 1 succeeds.
Exactly.
Rather than every single time Dele Alli plays it back, it's complete a pass, but we go nowhere.
Exactly.
So we're going to see that
Exactly.
if Winks tries to become this player that's a bit more progressive, maybe a bit more in the style of Ndombele, in that he can be a bit defensive as well, but maybe tries to be more creative, those passing stats are going to drop. And the fans who hate him for the fact that he is Harry Winks, they're going to bring that up. But if you want him to be more progressive, you're going to see a change in his stats in terms of, if he gets dispossessed and stuff like that. And hopefully he can become an effective player like that for us. But having said all that, I don't think it's in him.
Do you know what? That's a brilliant point, because that's why I really hate that pass percentage completion stat.
Yeah,
I just think it's the most misleading, erroneous stat you can have, because people think, well, they even do it on Sky Sports. They go 90% pass completion percentage. You're like, yeah, but you could just pass that backwards all game. It means nothing. Yeah. But to the untrained eye, people think that means, wow, he's a good passer, that guy. No, he's not. He can't pass, so he has to go backwards. So that's why I despise that stat. And you just made the perfect point there. You want them to take risks. And if that means giving the ball away 4 times, but that killer pass on that one time, that's going to unlock the defence. And I think that's Winks, maybe that could be the thing that changes him. If he actually thinks more like what you just said there and takes a risk and is prepared to give the ball away, but being positive, we could have, maybe there could be something new there.
But the thing is,
Fingers crossed, we never know. I mean, probably not. But
just quickly, not to keep it on Winks, but at youth level, I've got a mate, Windy, he's part of the Fighting Cock and stuff like that. He is big into youth, and he's always saying that at youth level, he was basically an AM. He was an attacking midfielder. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? He was brilliant at that.
He used to dribble when he first came into the side.
It was just coached out of him because we needed a defensive midfielder at the time. So now he's lost. But sorry.
Anyway, we could talk about Winksy all night, couldn't we? Winky.
I could. Winky. Better than Hobby.
Anyway, Matt, we are a point. What are we? A point behind Arsenal now?
With a game in hand?
With a game in hand. I mean, we're looking up at the moment, aren't we?
And are we a point in front of United with a game in hand as well?
I think so.
Yeah. Jesus.
Look, those numbers may be slightly misleading towards the season we've had so far. What I will say is, look, things are looking better. And the fact that every season at the moment seems to be whoever is the least bad will get into the top 4. I think having Conte at the helm is a good way to win that race. But with Rangnick coming in at United, I think there's pressure there. And I think West Ham will find their form again. And I said it when Conte was appointed, and I'll still say it now. I don't think we're going to get top 4. Because there's just too much lacking within that team, and like we're seeing at the back, one injury can really, really change things. And the last thing we need now is to get ahead of ourselves and for those expectations to be running high. Like I was sitting here I'd say 12 months ago today, telling Ben and Sim how we're going to win the Premier League. I'm not falling into that trap again. And I think it's best if any Spurs fans don't. But look, if we're 2 points off of the game at hand, it's possible. But I realistically, I still don't think it's going to happen, and I'm okay with that. Because
I agree.
We need to keep using the word progress, but we need to make progress. We need to move forward, and
it's a transition season, as we've been saying for like the last 30 years since I'm a fan.
It's a transitional
always
decade.
A transition season.
Transitional decade.
That's fair enough. All right, just quickly, best player and unsung hero.
Best player, Skip.
Oh, I thought you were going to give it to Winky.
After all that build-up.
Best play skip, unsung hero, I'll give it to Emerson, because I thought at the start of that second half, defensively, I thought he got us out of a few pickles. Still rash, still gives away the ball too much, still not the best defensively, but I think in that 15-20 minute spell, he did well to get us out of a few problems.
Agreed.
Fair enough, Matt. Well done, Matty. Good to have you back on the show. And hopefully we can chat to you a bit more in the coming weeks.
Definitely.
Cheers.
Alrighty, take care, man. Come on, you Spurs.